Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney and I'm here for shirt 2 of my One Pattern 3 Ways series. So if you missed last week, I will link up to it right here. I am working through Vogue 8772 and last week I did just a plain version. I think it was view C or D maybe. But it just the regular shirt sleeve, regular cuff or collar and collar stand, just your standard shirt, basically, button-up shirt. And I made it out of a really lightweight shirting denim and love it. But I showed you how I just did the flat pattern fitting before. I mean, last week's was basically a wearable muslin. It worked out really, really well. In fact, I didn't need to make any fitting adjustments for this week's, which is very exciting. Doesn't always happen that way. And on that note, I did want to say, I had mentioned last week that I prefer to make wearable muslins just because, I like to be able to wear the things, taking the time to make. However, I want to make a caveat there that I think one of the best ways, I think really the only way to learn fitting is through practice. And that is making a lot of mistakes, figuring out how to fix them, learning to read your body, learning to understand your body. And one of the best ways to do that is making muslins. I do make muslins for things that are a little bit more involved. If I'm, because my upper body is harder to fit. I have a few more issues that can kind of come up, especially if I'm doing a new pattern company. But I didn't want anyone to feel like making a lot of muslins was wasteful, because it is not. And actually, Lily, one of my viewers, had mentioned that what she likes to do is keep the muslin, her last muslin that, she finally gets the fit to where she likes it, and keeps it with the pattern. So if she comes back next time, to make the pattern, and maybe it's been a couple years, she can try on that muslin to determine, number one, if it still fits, and if it does, great, and if not, what tweaks she needs to make to now make it fit her current body, which I think is a fantastic idea. So I just wanted to pass that along as well. But yes, if you're learning fit and learning how to fit your own body, make the muslins. Buy the thrifted sheets that cost next to nothing at the thrift stores, and yeah, make the test garments, because that is definitely a fantastic way to learn. So I didn't want you all to think that I was just kind of, there is definitely value and importance in muslins. I just don't make them as much, especially anymore, because I just know my body really well. And I've sewn so many of the big four, oopsie Gidget, so many of the big four patterns now that I just kind of know what works with the different pattern companies for my body anyway. But yeah, I just want to throw that out there. Okay, so last week we talked about fitting. I just did the regular fit adjustments that I need for the pattern. It worked out really, really well for me. I love that shirt. It's actually hanging up behind all my coats back here. And actually I finished knitting the sweater last week that I was really excited to wear that shirt underneath. So that'll be coming to the channel soon as well. Anyway, fantastic classic button-up shirt. This week we are tackling, the shirt that I'm showing you today is actually the shirt that we will be making step by step. I have hair in my lipstick. For the sew along that starts on Sunday. So you're actually going to be you're seeing the shirt, the finished blouse, before you're actually seeing the sew along, which is a little backwards for how I normally do things. But yes, today's shirt is actually the sew along that will begin on Sunday, and that will be a 4-week sew along. So, okay, let's talk about it. So I did view B. A and B in this pattern, the only difference is that they've used a contrasting fabric for the tie and the cuffs, I think, but it's basically the same pattern. So I made mine with a silk crepe de chine. I'll throw it up here a little bit. This gorgeous silk crepe de chine. These are dark brown colors. It's like a sepia colors, which are much better on my skin tone than black would be. But it is a digital print of like sequins and rhinestones. Cool. I love this so much. I just had this on, actually I just finished sewing it last night, filming the sew along and sewing it last night. I walk you through in the sew along how I like to use spray starch to make my slipperier fabrics a little easier to handle. So it got washed last night to get all of that out, and steamed this morning, and it's all ready to go, and I had it all styled for the photos, and oh my gosh, I love this so much. So again, same pattern. I used the continuous lap placket on this one as opposed to the tower placket that I used on the other one. And I show you how to do that again. I have a video, a tutorial on how to do that already on the channel, but I actually walk you through how I do it on this one in the sew along, and I think that's week 3 that I do the sleeves. Now I did do a little bit of a hack on this pattern. So I took the regular sleeve and cuff. There's a nice deep cuff on this. I think it's 3 inches when all is said and done, and made the sleeve a little fuller at the base. And so I gathered this into the cuff. The original pattern just has a pleat, like a normal shirt sleeve that pleats into the cuff, but I made it bigger and gathered it in. And I actually show you how to do that pattern work, and I'm going to pause here to show you how I did that pattern adjustment. Okay, so let's do this sleeve and turn this into the balloon sleeve. Is that what you would call this? Big sleeve. Okay, so what I've done is I've traced off my sleeve pattern. So here's my sleeve pattern here. Obviously the cuff we're going to leave the same, so that can stay the same. So I've traced off my sleeve pattern. I've marked my grain line. I've just not even marked the pleat marking because we're going to be gathering. We're going to be making the whole base of this sleeve really wide, and then it's going to be gathered into the cuff. So we do need our slash and stitching lines. We need that marked because that will be where we put our continuous lap placket. So we'll still need that, but that's it. I've marked my notches on here. This is basically the same pattern. I've just drawn it out on paper so that we can mark into it and not have to worry about distorting the original pattern. Okay, so I have marked in my stitching line here at the top of my sleeve cap. Now I had a lot of questions on last week's video about, you know, altering the arm's eye or the armhole to do the narrow shoulder adjustment because it raises the armhole at the side seam a little bit. As long as, so all of that I did, I was not messing with the sewing line on both the sleeve and the armhole. If that sewing line is staying the same, which it does, you know, that's where we're hinging here, you're not gonna have any problems. As long as those stitching lines, all of the ease that was built into both the sleeve cap, the sleeve itself, and that will stay the same because you are using the same length line for your stitching line, if that makes sense. So you don't have to add anything where you've taken stuff away or any of that stuff. As long as your stitching line stays the same length, you should be good to go. Obviously, I mean, there's always an it depends. And I know that there's a million different ways that you can get to the same ending product, but this is just how I do it. But yeah, if you leave that stitching line the same length, you're good to go. And this is how I learned to do pattern manipulation. So that's what I'm showing. Okay, so what we're gonna do is you could do this a couple different ways. If you would like a really poofy sleeve that, you know, I know statement sleeves are very in right now, you could definitely slash and spread this entire sleeve piece and gather both the sleeve cap and the bottom of the sleeve. So you could gather the top of the sleeve cap into the arm's eye at the, you know, the top of the sleeve cap to give it kind of a poofed sleeve at the top, and also gather the bottom of the sleeve into the cuff to give a really voluminous sleeve. I am not going to be doing that because I like to not draw too much attention to my shoulder line, just because I can appear top heavy really easily, just the way my body is made. So, but that is one way to do that. And if you wanted to do that, instead of, I'm going to be hinging here at this sewing line to create the volume at the base of the sleeve. Instead of doing that, you can cut all the way through the sleeve, all the way through the stitching line and everything. So you will be changing the stitching line for that one, but since you'll be gathering it to fit, you'd be fine. So anyway, you would just be similar alteration, I guess. But I'm just going to be adding the volume to the base of the sleeve. So I've got my grain line marked. I want all of my slash and spread lines to be parallel to my grain line. So what I'm going to do, oh, one moment, I have an angry puppy. Sorry, I had the audacity to have fabric sitting on the chair that she wanted to be on. So excuse me while I bow to the puppy dog. All right, so obviously we want to stay out of our seam allowances here on the side. So I'm just going to go, I don't know, you can kind of do this somewhat arbitrarily. I've also set my paper on top of a grid and lined my grain line on top of one of those grid lines. It kind of makes it a little bit easier. But we're going to just kind of arbitrarily pick a mark here, and we'll just start here at the sleeve. And then I'm just going to go, and again, my lines are all perpendicular to my grain line. And I'm just gonna go and make some lines from, and I'm gonna go all the way to the base of the sleeve. I did not mark in seam allowances at the bottom of the sleeve, even though they're already in there, because we'll be cutting through those, because we're gonna be gathering that to fit. So I'm just gonna make 2-inch lines. I'm also doing, I noticed that my head was getting in, the top of my head was getting into the film footage last time. Okay, so I'm just gonna do 2-inch lines all the way across this sleeve. Okay, this last slash line, just because I don't want to get into my seam allowances here on the side, is I made it just 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches, I think. So it is a little narrower. It'll be fine. All right. Also, you want to try and keep your slash here in one of the, you don't want a line going up through that. You want to kind of leave that alone a little bit. So now what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to cut along my cutting line here at the top of the sleeve just to make it a little easier to hinge. Okay, so now we're going to cut from the base of the pattern up to the seam line. And again, because we're hinging at that sewing line, even though the shape will change, the stitching line and the ease that's built in there stays the same. Same length. Okay, I'm actually just going to do half the sleeve because cutting it all at once, things just can get really, they just get flimsy and things can tear easily. So I'm just going to do half the sleeve at a time. So now that I've cut up to the stitching line there, see what I mean? It gets very fringy. Now I'm just going to cut down to those cut lines through the seam allowance. Okay, so that we can easily pivot. So now, I've got a little bit of extra, oh my gosh, that I would like to pick up. A little bit of extra paper here. Slide that underneath. Okay, so now I'm just going to take the, see, it gets very hard to manage. So if you just do one part of the sleeve at a time. So now we're going to tape down our side here. Okay, so once we have this first one taped, so now you want to decide how much width you would like in your sleeve, how big and poofy you would like it. Again, I'm short, so I don't need anything like super voluminous. I'd like the look without getting like crazy, crazy big. But I am going to add, and this is going to give me a lot of volume, but I'm going to add an inch right here at the bottom in between each of my slashes. You want that to lie flat. And so this will change the shape of the cap. But again, you're leaving your stitching line the same, same length, so it should all be good. All right, so now I'm just gonna go, and now I'm gonna add an inch. And I'm just going section by section. And I'm just putting, again, an inch in between my slash and spreads. You could, do up to 2 inches if you wanted. That'd make a very nice, big, and voluminous sleeve. So I'm just putting in, some placeholder tape. So this is how this plays. All right. So now I can go and finish cutting the rest of my sleeve and grab another piece of paper so that I can continue slashing and spreading. So I will do that on camera, but I'm going to fast forward because this takes a hot minute. Okay, so once you've got your sleeve all spread and it looks really crazy, now you will notice that the sleeve has a shaped bottom on it. So if I bring in the original piece here, and obviously this is my altered piece, you want to always use your altered piece. It's shaped. It's not straight across the bottom, just where it, you know, the pleat that's in there and all that kind of stuff. So we can kind of ignore that shaping for this this application, because again, we're gathering. So everything is going to be gathered in. So this is going to be kind of, I mean, it's almost like an A-line skirt or a circle skirt or anything with like a shaped hem. It's a very similar thing. So you can use a ruler if you want and kind of create that line, or you can get super crazy and freehand it. It is up to you, your personality type, whatever you're happy doing here. So there is some shaping here, and I'm just going to kind of ignore that. So there we go. Now I am going to leave my notch here because that does line up. I think that lines up to part of the cuff, if I recall. So yeah, I'll go ahead and leave that in there. Obviously my slash needs to stay because I will need to put a continuous lap placket. So now all that happens is now we just cut it out. I would suggest going through and, you know, taping your slashes, because there's nothing more annoying than something getting caught under here and ripping your pattern. So I do suggest now going back, now that everything is kind of anchored, and you know, a lot of these, a piece of tape kind of covers both, but going through and now anchoring all of your slashes down. Alternatively, you could also get another piece of paper out and just retrace a new sleeve if you really want to, a brand new pattern piece that is this new shape. Your grain line is going to stay the same. My grain line mark is still there. Yeah, so there we have it. So now the only thing I'm going to do differently is that I will gather this whole area into my cuff when I sew it, and you will actually get to watch me do that because this is the sleeve I'll be using for the sew along. Okay guys, I hope that was helpful. Okay, so there you have it. That is kind of the fuller sleeve. And actually, this didn't make it, I have to be careful. I love the statement sleeves of the season right now. I just think that they're a lot of fun. I have to be careful for two reasons though. Number one, I'm short. I'm only 5'2", so I have to be careful when silhouettes get a little too voluminous, because that can overwhelm my frame. I wouldn't call me petite necessarily. I'm just short. Everything on me is just kind of short, but I can get overwhelmed pretty easily with too much volume. So I wanted to be wary of that and not make my sleeve too big. You could definitely make it bigger, put more gaps in between the your slashes if you wanted to make an even fuller sleeve, but I did want to be careful of that. And then number two, I also have to be careful because I am broader on top than I am on my lower half. So I'm a little bit of an inverted triangle in that sense, and I just don't want too much going on my shoulders more specifically. Now the fuller sleeves down below, that doesn't really bother me, but I didn't want to do a gathered like a puffy sleeve at the top, because that can make me look even broader and makes me look more disproportionate from my top to my bottom. But I love how this one turned out. It's just perfect. So what I did is exactly what I was wanting. Okay, so I used, like I said, a silk crepe de chine. However, when I was doing some research for my spring video of where I'm gonna, you know, pattern some, put patterns with looks for spring, I start researching those well in advance before I actually film them. But I came across these two Boden shirts that are this shirt, but they're made out of shirting, like a cotton shirting, as opposed to like a drapier silk or a rayon or a cupro, which is a cotton based. It's processed similar to rayon, but it's made with a cotton base as opposed to cellulose, which rayon is, but any of those drapier fabrics. And I will pop pictures of them here. So again, these are both from Boden, but oh my gosh, I saw those and I'm like, well, now I need one of these and one of my shirtings. I think it would be fantastic in like a Liberty Tana lawn. Ooh, that'd be beautiful. Really, this pattern is, you know, sky's the limit. I'm only going to be doing 3 for the channel, but yeah, this one's not going to go, this pattern's not going to get put away too far. Buried too deep. I'm saving everything because I think I'm going to be revisiting this here pretty soon. I love making shirts and I love a good button up. I love wearing them as well. So again, I use the collar piece as opposed, or the tie piece as opposed to the collar piece. This has buttons down the front. I did 10 buttons, so there's 8 buttons down the front, which maybe have been a little bit of an overkill, but I had these brown ones from my stash that are from Wawak, and they're just a sport shirt button. I can't remember what size they are. I think they only came in one size, to be honest. They're probably like a 3/8 inch button, I would say. But from Wawak, this button came in a ton of colors, but I was buying it for a different project, and you had to buy it by the gross. And so I have 144 of these. Well, a little less now because this is the second time I've used them. But I wear chocolate brown more than I wear black, so I thought, well, that'll be a good dark neutral that'll probably go with a lot more than I realize. And so far, they've come in very handy. So I'm very excited about wearing this shirt. I'll show it to you in a minute on me. I'm very excited about wearing this bow both tied, because I think that's just a fantastic look, and also undone. So this buttons up, and I made this per the pattern. This buttons up all the way to the top here. Here, let me untie that, make it easier to see. So you finish off the edge here at the top. You can kind of see that. And then the bow or the tie collar gets attached there. So you could very easily wear this just with the strings undone, or the ties undone, and then I would probably unbutton a couple of these to give it more of a V-neck effect, you know, like I would wear a button-up shirt. But then I think it kind of looks almost like a scarf hanging down. So I think that's kind of a cool look as well. So just different ways that you can wear this. I have it paired with jeans, and I'll show you footage now of me actually in the blouse. But I have this with jeans right now, but I mean, obviously this could very easily go with my wool pencil skirt that I made that's in kind of this colorway. If you wanted to go like very nice, it could go great with high-waisted trousers. You know, I've got my Hollywood trousers that I made back last spring for the Great Module Sew Along. It would look fantastic with those. So you can definitely dress it up, but then just as easily dress it down. I actually think this would be really fun with my orange flare jeans as well. So I think I'm gonna get probably a lot more wear out of this blouse than, you know, for a silk blouse. When you wash and dry your silk before you even sew it, it makes it so much easier to take care of and makes me more apt to grab it and to wear it throughout the day. We currently have over a foot of snow on the ground, and actually it's snowing again today. So this is a little thin, just the fabric itself is a little thin for me to be wearing right now. Definitely I could layer it up. I'll talk about that in a second too, but silk is a great actually insulator, so it's fantastic for layering. But I think that I'm gonna be surprised how much I actually do wear this even as the weather starts to warm up. It'd be great with white jeans, which I have plans to make a new pair this spring. Yeah, I just think that this is gonna get a lot of wear even though it's silk, because if I do get something on it, it's really easy to clean just because I have already washed the fabric. So it will just go into my washing. In fact, last night it went into my washing machine to wash all the starch out in a lingerie bag, in the hand wash cycle of my washing machine. Got washed with a Woolite, actually. I used Woolite for this one, so a little bit more delicate detergent, and then I hung it up to dry. And then once it was dry, I hit the hem with the iron just to make it a little bit crisper, and then everything else I hit with the steamer. And yeah, it just turned out, really well. So yeah, I'm very excited. So this is shirt 2 of our series. Really love how that one turned out. And of course now I think I need one in a cotton as well, the same version. We have one more look that'll be coming to you, and I'm actually going to be altering the pattern again a little bit. So this one has shoulder darts in the back and there's no yoke, and I'm actually going to be adding a yoke and showing you how to omit those shoulder darts in adding a yoke. So we'll be rotating the darts into the yoke seam, and I'm going to be adding more width across the back, not sewing the back darts because I want a little bit fuller jacket, and we're going to be making this into a shacket or a shirt jacket. And I'm playing around with still if I want to add pockets to it to make it a little bit more jacket-esque, as opposed to just an oversized shirt, you know, that I'm just kind of wearing over things. So stay tuned on that, but that will be next week. I'll have my final shirt, and then again, I'll be sewing this one actually step by step with you in the weekly sew along, and that starts on Sunday, where I'll be talking about the fabric and all sorts of stuff, sewing with slippery fabrics, yeah, and some tips and tricks on that. And then we actually start sewing a week from Sunday on the actual shirt. So that will be a 4-week long sew along, and I know that because it's now filmed. Yeah, so I hope that this was fun to see. I think this one pattern 3 ways is just a really great way to get more longevity and more use out of our patterns, and yeah, kind of save a little bit of money and just also allow for more creativity, because it kind of makes you think outside the box a little bit more, which I think can be really fun and a good challenge, just to kind of use what you've got and make it work. And I've been having a lot of fun with that, so excited to come at you next week with the 3rd shirt in this series. Okay guys, that's all I have for today. I hope you are having a wonderful Friday. I hope you are staying warm wherever you are. And if you are under a lot of snow like we are, I hope you're able to shovel yourself out. I know people are under more snow than we are, but anyway, I hope you guys do get some sewing in this weekend, and I will see you all on Sunday for part 1 of the sew along, and then again on Tuesday for another video. Have a great weekend, guys. Bye.